So my partner and I just came back from our holidays in Sicily, and in this video, I want to tell you guys all about it. Like, wait a minute, wasn't that what we're supposed to see when we were honest? It wasn't our favorite spots. Traveling has been a big part of my life, and I think it started in 2013 when I had this quarter life crisis when everything in my life that could go wrong went wrong, and I was not in a good mental space, and it was a really bad period in my life. But that's also when it triggered me to quit my job, drop everything, and take a sabbatical, which was a whole life-changing experience, and it's a totally separate video. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because in that trip, that's also when I first went to Italy and experienced Italian food and Italian culture for the first time. And it's been 11 years. So going back to Italy, while it's a totally different region, I've observed a few different things. And the whole experience was very different. It was very different circumstance. Back then, I was backpacking by myself and I was in a different headspace, in a different place in life. So I think the experience should be different because this time I went with my partner and we went to Sicily. But that is also the beauty of traveling, is that no matter what time, when you go to a place, the first time, the second time, you're bound to have a different experience and different observations about the place you went to, which is such a beautiful thing in my mind. So in this video, I want to share with you those observations that I've had and share with you a silly mistake that we made on our first day, and show you some of our favorite spots. So we flew out from Düsseldorf Airport, which is not too far from where we're staying in the Netherlands in the south. It's about an hour and a half drive. And because our flight was super early, we also had to wake up extra early to get there and, do the check-in thing. And when we got to the airport, there was so much people waiting in line to be checked in, to drop off their baggage. And this is also the point when I observed something interesting, which is that many people carry around a lot of luggages. There's this family that I saw with a cart, a mountain full of luggage that's higher than a person. And this is not to, judge in any way, shape, or form. I think, people can decide on how much they need, what they need to go to where they go. But it made me reflect on my journey in simplifying my life, because I too used to travel with so much stuff. And the reason why I did that back then was, one, I was an inexperienced traveler because of that 2013 trip. It was my first time out of Canada, other than my home country of China. I've never been outside, I didn't know what to bring. So I'm like, okay, let's bring everything just in case I need it. And in 2018, I also brought along a lot of camera gear because that's when I started documenting and vlogging my travel adventures, which you can still see on my channel. And mind you, like, those camera gear were like nice and, it created a lot of very aesthetic and cinematic shots. But in hindsight, I felt like I really didn't need all that to tell a story, which is why, like, throughout the years, I've now downsized that big 65-liter backpack that I used to travel with and camera gear just down to like a carry-on backpack and just make videos with my phone. And I think this whole journey of downsizing has been life-changing for me, because now I don't need to worry about breaking things or having things stolen and lost, whatever. Now it's just like the essentials that I need, and a few shirts, underwear, socks, like that's all I needed. And I'm quite proud of the journey so far, and looking back at how far I've come in terms of just simplifying my life. So the flight from Düsseldorf Airport to Catania is about 2.5 hours. And as we were landing in Catania, we can see Mount Etna from afar out the window, which was a really cool scene. So we rented a car along with the flight that we booked because it was a package deal. And I'm really glad that guys drove for the entire trip, because I don't think I could have driven there and it gave me a lot of anxiety, and I'll tell you why later in this video. But after we picked up our car, we head straight to our first destination, which was Agrigento. So Agrigento is where everyone recommends if you were to go to Sicily, because that's where the Valley of Temples lives. And so that's where we went. And because we couldn't check in yet, we went straight to see the Valley of Temples. And this is also where we made our silly mistake. So when we got there, parked our car, we started walking around the park, and it had this really nice view of Agrigento city from the other side. And then on the other side, you can also see a nice valley with the view of the Mediterranean Sea. And at this point, we were pretty tired and exhausted from driving, traveling, and waking up super early. And especially with the blazing sun and the heat, we were just not in our elements to explore. So we walked around the park for a bit, and then we're like, oh, this is like a nice short walk. And we thought the park was pretty small, but then it turned out, because we had missed an entire section, and later you're gonna see when we actually realized we made the mistake. But as we were walking through the park, we had no idea we missed the main event. So after the park, we went to our bed and breakfast to check in, drop off our baggages, and then we went to walk in the main area of Agrigento, which is a main street filled with different restaurants and shops. But it was really, really quiet, where we thought that maybe it's because it's a Sunday or that it's a holiday. And at the end of this main street, there's this beautiful outlook area to see the Valley of Agrigento and as well as the Mediterranean Sea. And this is also when we recognized that we had made that silly mistake. So as we were checking out this beautiful valley, we saw this really nice architecture that was like clearly the main event of Agrigento. And then we're like, wait a minute. Wasn't that what we're supposed to see when we were at the Valley of the Temples? And that's how we found out that we sillily missed the main event going to Agrigento. But I guess it is what it is, because it's just another reason for us to go back in the future if we do ever go back to Sicily. Because this trip, we also skipped a few parts because we just didn't have enough time, like Palermo. So I'm sure one day we're going to go back and explore more of Sicily. So as the dinner time approached, we saw so much people on the streets, which is a drastic difference from what we saw earlier in the day when we first checked in. And we noticed that there are a lot of locals walking up and down the streets, greeting each other, dressed up very nicely. And I don't know if this is like a tradition or something, or an Italian culture where before dinner on a Sunday, they would walk up and down the streets to greet each other. So if you know what this is all about, do let me know in the comments below. So for dinner, we found this really cute restaurant just right next to our bed and breakfast, and we had this meal of fried fishes, and it was delicious. So the next morning, we were greeted by this beautiful breakfast with a lot of different sweet pastries, cakes, and as well as savory stuff like olives, sun-dried tomatoes, cured ham, cheese. And it was on the rooftop as well, so there was this beautiful view with amazing sunshine. And the highlight of this breakfast for me was this super decadent chocolatey cake that has a hint of orange, and the flavor profile was just so sophisticated and decadent. I'm not sure what it was, but I loved it. And after breakfast, we took off to head to our next destination, which was Caltagirone. But along the way, as we got closer to Caltagirone, we actually made a slight detour to check out a nearby coastal city called Gela. So Gela is a very quiet seaside town, and the main area is just one street with this cathedral. And when we got there, it's a very relaxed and calm vibe. So we just walked along the beach and as well as the main area just to see a little bit of the town. But there really wasn't much to do there or see. So we just got back into our car to head to Caltagirone after the short walk. And to be honest, it wasn't our favorite spot because there weren't too much charm and it felt very empty. But Caltagirone is a totally different story because there was so much charm. Caltagirone is located on a hill, and it kind of gave me this medieval village kind of vibe because in order to get up to the main area, you have to drive through these narrow streets and it kind of wrapped around the city's center. And when we got there, the bed and breakfast host actually allowed us to check in earlier, and they were really nice and actually met up with us to show us where we can park, because if it wasn't for them, it would have been quite difficult to find parking there given the narrow streets, and it was a very kind of village vibe. And this bed and breakfast was super cute, located so central, and it's just like a few minutes walk from the main square. So after dropping off our bags, we went to find lunch, and we found this cute little convenient grocery store that had a kind of cafe section where they would serve fresh fruits platters and fresh cut cured meat platters, cheese platters, and it was super delicious. And we also had this local drink which is called kinoto, and it's a kind of like a hint of lemon, but it's like bitter lemon and a bit of sweetness, which was quite nice actually. So the next morning, our bed and breakfast hosts brought us fresh pastries for breakfast. And this is also when I learned latte in Italian means milk. For the longest time, I've always thought latte was that coffee drink. So when people say, let's go get a latte, it actually means let's go get a milk, which I thought was kind of odd and funny at the same time. And after our breakfast, we head off to our next destination, which is Syracuse, which was about an hour and a